Hello and welcome to our webinar. I'm Julia Goebel, Chief Marketing Officer at Komodo Health, and it's a pleasure to have you with us today. We're at a point where you can't have a conversation about healthcare without having a conversation about AI. And there's a lot of noise in the industry about AI's potential. So today we want to get away from the unproven and into the reality. We've brought together AI thought leaders, implementers, and developers for a discussion about the practical applications of AI in healthcare. Our esteemed panel brings decades of experience across business, clinical practice, and AI development. And anything today shared is information in the public domain. Any use cases referred to in this discussion are publicly approved to share. I'm going to introduce our distinguished panel now. Today, we'll hear from Anurag Gupta, Senior Director, Data Science and AI Products, Digital Health, Commercial and Medical Affairs at AstraZeneca. Anurag works across AstraZeneca's portfolio of US oncology. And prior to AstraZeneca, Anurag was at Takeda, where he was head of US oncology patient insights and real world data analytics, where he served as the head of a center of excellence for real world data, AI, ML, and predictive modeling. He has led several data science and AI initiatives for pharma, commercial, and medical at Takeda, Genentech, and AbbVie. Welcome, Anurag.
Thank you so much, Julia. Very excited to be part of this panel and looking forward to the fruitful discussion here.
Excellent. Next, let me introduce Gaurav Jaggi, Director, Strategic Insights and Analytics at Bayer Oncology. Gaurav leads the market research, forecasting, secondary, and AI ML focused predictive analytics, strategic insights, and launch preparation efforts for their oncology brands. With more than 15 years experience in healthcare and life sciences advisory, Gaurav has led brand commercial strategies, sales and marketing tactics, and advanced analytic solutions for some of the top pharma and biotech organizations. Welcome, Gaurav.
Thanks for introducing me, Julia. Looking forward to an interesting discussion today.
Likewise. And next, I'll introduce Vibha Chetu, Director of Product Management for Platform and Data Ecosystem at Komodo Health. My colleague Vibha has over 12 years of experience in healthcare data analytics and technology management. At Komodo, she has developed AI and advanced analytics platforms, and her prior role was as Principal Product Manager at Genentech, where she built advanced analytics platforms for product development and regulatory submissions, leading the way for using R in pharma. Vibha has also made impactful contributions at Amgen, leading early research and development, preclinical data management initiatives, and using machine learning for digital pathology initiatives. Welcome, Vibha.
Thank you, Julia. Excited to be here.
And lastly, Vivek Mukherjee, our generative AI medical engagement lead within medical affairs at Pfizer. Before joining Pfizer, Vivek served as the Global Medical Director for Plastics and Regenerative Medicine, Medical Affairs at AbbVie, where he was instrumental in developing and executing medical, portfolio, and market access insights. Welcome, Vivek.
Thank you, Julia. I'm excited to be part of this discussion and innovating in the pharma space with AI. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. We're so glad you're here. Thank you all for spending time today. And I know our audience is interested in the insights we'll discuss. As we begin, I want to touch on research that earlier this year Komodo conducted. In an industry survey, we asked life sciences leaders about their adoption of AI. Far and away, we're seeing larger organizations more readily adopting new AI tools to improve understanding of their market and disease or therapeutic landscape, improve workflow processes, inform drug discovery, and more. Now we're going to ask you, our audience, to participate in a poll. So I'll ask my partners at Reuters to launch poll number 1. To get us started, I wanted to ask the collective, is your organization exploring AI solutions right now? Are you using it in multiple teams across the enterprise? Perhaps some teams have access to specific tools, or in your organization, not using new AI tools. We'll leave the poll up for a couple of moments to allow for some input and ask you to participate in the poll now. We'll give you about 30 more seconds as we see the answers coming in. Appreciate the insights that you're offering and how your organization is exploring AI solutions presently. All right, let's look at these results. We'll go ahead and close the poll and see the results. So as we look at your responses, we see about 50% of the responses are indicating some tools have access for specific needs. The next response with 40% state, yes, we're using it in multiple teams across the enterprise. And about 10% are indicating, no, we're not yet using new AI tools. Thanks very much for participating in the responses. Now, as we turn over to our distinguished panel, I'd like to ask each of you, how have your organizations implemented or adopted AI tools to generate insights for better decision-making? And perhaps can you speak to the value you're seeing as a result?
Absolutely.
I might ask,
go
ahead.
First, I can volunteer. Thank you so much. And it was really exciting to see the poll results. In one line, I can say 90% responded that they are somewhat, or at full pace, they are very much inclined to use AI, and that is how the industry trend has been in pharma. As far as my experience goes, almost all big pharmas are investing in AI technology, and it's done at a multiple level in my experience. We all work with data. Data comes with complexity. Data comes with limitations. So that is where the first step is. AI, ML techniques are used to make the data better so that can be used to generate right insights. After using that, so I mean, if I talk about the data problems, it comes with like two inherent gap. One is your data complete, representing what you are trying to achieve? For example, patient level data. Whatever data source do we get, is it complete? It's never complete. Second is like timing issue, right? Are you getting a real-time data? What happened yesterday? So as a business people, we always need like real-time data to see what is coming so that I can prepare for competition to support patients. So that is where the first power of AI ML comes into the play. How can we make these data gaps less and less so that we can generate the insights which are more consumable? Then comes your second level, which is like, okay, data is ready, has been validated by certain standard techniques. How can I synthesize my decision engines to give like right recommendations and generate right insights, which can be consumed by any of the teams, medical affairs, commercial, field, marketing, to synthesize their strategies on it. And then comes the last piece, because the insights are generated for multiple places, multiple pieces. How can I bring everything together in a single story? That is where generative AI is like coming as a strong storyteller and synthesizer. It brings all the information together, synthesize it in a meaningful way. Yes, all these processes at 3 level needs to be validated, work with your end users, but that is where the entire AI is playing a role.
That's great, Anurag. Thank you. Appreciate that, and the way that you've broken it down into 3 clear pathways. Let's get some additional thoughts. Maybe Gaurav, your thoughts.
Yeah, so I think having been an oncology researcher in past, and also having worked as a consultant for several pharma companies, and now working as part of the pharma industry, there are some specific use cases which I believe have been adding a lot of value to internal customers as well as external customers. And the teams I've worked with, not just at Bayer, but also previously. So I'd probably call out 2 or 3 specific use cases. One, this is more internal focus, the first one. So this webinar, is called How AI is Democratizing Data Insights. So let me talk about a use case which is truly democratizing insights for internal customers within the pharma companies. Companies are now implementing AI-driven platforms for business intelligence and analytics that helps users quickly discover insights from their data. They're doing it by combining advanced machine learning and NLP to enable users to ask questions of their data in very simple everyday language. This allows non-technical users like brand managers or analysts to easily uncover key insights without needing to rely on data science teams. So essentially, they are easy to use, search-driven platforms anyone can quickly uncover actionable insights from across multiple data sources, which facilitates faster decision-making and more efficient reporting. Another use case is more external focus. So I personally work in oncology. So as you would know, for those who are working here in this sector, there's been significant advancement in science over the last decade, thanks to immunotherapies, PARPs, radioligand therapies, and other fantastic precision medicine therapies, which are really going towards an era where we're going very targeted in a very precision medicine manner. So while patients are benefiting from higher and higher overall survival benefits, it's important to administer these therapies at the exact right time, because as we know, the disease progresses really fast in oncology. AI can now help these, help us find these patients and their HCPs at the right time, or even before it's required, just right before it. So one example of that is predicting metastasis in patients 3 to 6 months prior to that happening. You can do it in two-step process. One, you train the AI with data on hundreds and thousands of patient records of metastatic patients going back several years with their procedure codes, drug utilization histories, diagnoses, adverse events, and a lot of other data. So the AI gets trained on predicting metastasis for patients based on the sequence of events. Then you apply this AI on all claims data, for instance, to predict patients who are not yet metastatic, but they will be in the next 3 to 6 months based on all that the AI has learned. We've seen, through my projects, there's immense potential of doing that. The AI detected HCPs are 10 to 20 times more accurate in predicting non-met patients getting metastasis that way versus baseline HCPs. Another use case is instead of predicting patients becoming metastasis, finding patients as soon as they become metastasis through labs data, for instance, so you do not miss that narrow window when the patient needs to be treated. Labs data has a benefit that it has very less lag, only 2 to 3 days versus claims, which could be a month, for instance. And there's a lot of data available. Through pathology reports, you can easily find out metastatic data, and AI algorithms out there, which are clinically trained, can easily go through mountains of labs data to decipher those clinical terminology and find out patients who are metastatic within 2 to 3 days. So that's another use case, which is really helping finding patients as soon as they become metastasis and giving them these life-saving therapies right on time, so that they don't lose that window of opportunity before they progress fast.
And we know all too well how important time is in these circumstances, so I appreciate that, Gaurav. Let's turn it over to Vivek for some observations.
Yeah, thank you. And I think this is great use cases that Anurag and Gaurav already highlighted, how the pharmaceutical industry is going through this significant transformation, driven by this integration of data analytics and AI, generative AI. And I think about these use cases personally with my background in medical affairs. We, as an organization, as just pharma organizations in general, grapple with a variety of data sources, right? So Gaurav highlighted some of them, Anurag highlighted some of them. It could be clinical trials, patient records, real-world evidence, and even in the more forefront, wearable data that's coming in. And what AI emerges as sort of a tool that democratizes how we look at these. It's a very powerful tool that aggregates all of this data and provides some actionable and predictive insights. So it does make it very, very useful. And it does, and I think they've already highlighted how it democratizes stakeholders and very non-technical stakeholders to allow for making informed decisions using these data sets. And now it's our job to kind of combine all of these to make impactful use cases. So from what I've seen around the organizations, and I'm a bit biased towards a little bit in terms of pipeline, my work is in pipeline, and taking insights from the field in my medical affairs role, in my field medical affairs role, and bringing that internally to make strategic decisions. So one of the ones that I've seen that has high impact already in the field has been in drug discovery. Right? So we can now use AI to do identification of new potential drug targets with utilizing models that are specific to biomolecular interactions. The other one I've used in my previous life is utilizing for clinical trials efficiency. There is a lot of data hidden within the EHR that can provide guidance on where the correct institutions are that can manage a specific type of clinical trial. We also can combine this data sets to identify the recruitment rates, potential target, and can we utilize the data to increase the efficiency of clinical trials? And that is also being considered and explored at a variety of pharma organizations. And finally, the one near and dear to me is personalized content development. This is, as a medical affairs person, I'm interested in bringing as much value in my discussions with HCPs, and it can be payers, it can be medical doctors, it can be VAC committees, to provide them the best information that is relevant to them, so that they can make the best decisions for their patients and improve patient care. And this is where generative AI and AI, with aggregating all of this information from unstructured data sources, can aggregate this into an excellent package that is very relevant and for the personalized engagement that can take place with these HCPs. So content development, these are all excellent use cases that I've seen already having so much impact by the use of AI, generative AI, and data. Thank you.
Thank you. That's wonderful. Really, from medical affairs to clinical trials and recruitment of diverse patients, as well as the initial comment around business users having access to data science in a way that they might not have previously. Let's turn it over to you, Viva. Share your thoughts.
So I think a lot has been already said in terms of like how relevant data is in the AI journey. I think with Komodo specifically, we have a pretty comprehensive healthcare map with over 300 million patients that are living in the US. And we also augment this data with labs, genomics, RWE data. So we have at our disposal a lot of data with a lot of fidelity. And traditionally, what our data scientists would have done is build extremely complex statistical models or like predictive machine learning algorithms, and then look for trends, patterns, anomalies, and surface those as insights across, I guess, the entire plethora of like clinical development, medical affairs, commercial analytics, and any other use case that you could think that you could derive from this data. And while we've had access to this data and we've solved for a lot of these use cases, we weren't able to do this before at scale. Also, the ability to mine our data was very limited to the exclusive few who understood how our data was organized, how it was schematized, and kind of getting down to the brass tacks of it. So earlier this year, we actually built our first NLP GenAI offering, and we wanted to do that with an intent of lowering the barrier to exploring this data in a meaningful way to our customers and our partners. And so far, we've been seeing a very, very positive reception. With GenAI, I think what Komodo has been able to do is essentially open up these gates and build access and democratize access in a true sense to this data. We've seen business users and data scientists now coming together on a shared understanding of this data and then generating novel insights in just a few minutes. And we've seen silos break down in decision-making as we are able to now essentially invite non-technical users earlier into the ideation process, along with data scientists who can peer review and collaborate as a business user essentially forms an idea, and then we take it to a logical, organic conclusion in terms of the analytics. So I think data is at the heart of it. And I think the tools that we've been able to build kind of infer that context in a very, very precise domain-specific manner. So I think our journey so far with AI has shown a lot of promise in terms of being able to democratize these access to users.
Thank you, Viva. As we think about the use cases, shared already, and in this example, the transition really that we're seeing across the market, and of course, at Komodo is building AI tools that support all of these use cases in industry. Let's talk a little further about, building and being the principal behind an AI tool for Komodo called Map AI, and how it can help perhaps make business users, brand users, analysts, their own data scientists to generate insights needed. Can you talk a little more about that vision?
Of course. So Map AI that you referred to for our audience here is Komodo's first generative AI NLP based assistant that we launched just a few weeks back commercially, and it's available now. The inception of the idea was maybe from a lot of personal experience in terms of having had to work with healthcare data, which is extremely complex and highly contextual. Less than a year ago, we started our Gen AI journey because there was a lot of excitement in the healthcare industry about AI, and there was a lot of appetite for AI, which is very encouraging to see, especially in pharma and healthcare life sciences, which are more conservative about new technologies kind of coming to the forefront. When we started this journey about a year back, we evaluated some of the general purpose AI solutions that were out there. What we observed, however, was they fell short of what we needed them to do. They lacked the domain expertise. They did not do fare well in terms of inferring context. And all of this was very crucial for the AI, for any AI tool or any AI offering to work well, because context is comprehension, and what AI does best is kind of surface that comprehension in a very digestible manner. So as we thought about this problem space, it was clear to us that we wanted to find a solution that we could build that understood the context of an analysis. It was able to intuitively adapt to different use cases because our healthcare map transverses across the entire drug development, pharma, provider, payer landscape. And all of this needed to be done with a compliant and secure manner. I think one of our observations with some of these earlier closed LLMs was that there was very little to no control on how user conversation data was being employed in terms of training the AI. So being in healthcare, we have to be extremely vigilant of privacy and compliance. So I think with these kind of three tenets in mind in terms of what we wanted an AI offering to be or an AI assistant to do, we started building Map AI on the Komodo platform, leveraging AI and NLP processing. What Map AI does is it represents a significant breakthrough in terms of how you transform healthcare data. The AI itself has been trained on our comprehensive and highly contextualized healthcare map. And what it does is it simplifies performing all of these complex analysis that you would want to do as a business user or as a data scientist to a point where both a business user or a data scientist can do the same analysis with equal ease using just a few simple prompts written in like plain English. And it does all of this while preserving the data compliance, security, and any kind of data use agreements that kind of govern how data can be used. So it adapts to the use case to ensure that we're always built with privacy as the core principle of how the AI operates. I'm a product manager, so what I love is kind of showing you what the product does. So to put this in perspective, I'd like to bring up Map AI so that you could see it in action. And with that, I'm just going to share real quick.
That's great. Seeing is, as a visual and auditory learner, I like both. Thank you.
Yes. So what you're seeing is a real-time recorded demo of Map AI. I just recorded it ahead of time, but this is all real-time. It has not been edited in any way. So just leaving it out there. So what Map AI does, in the next few minutes, I'm going to pick up a specific but a rather common use case, which is a pharma company has a new drug of interest. And in this case, I've picked up multiple myeloma as my disease area of investigation. And in this fictitious example, but what might sound common to our audience is how an organization could bring a new drug for fourth line therapy for MM into the market. And to be able to do this, we'll basically see how, with just a few simple sentences that crafted by somebody who does not have very deep context, except for just the fact that we want to launch a new drug to market, and see how far can AI take them in their journey. So to start my analysis, I would want to kind of educate myself a little bit about the drug. So I do not need to know all of the NDC codes. I do not need to know any of the information of the drug. I can just ask the AI, and it is able to retrieve labeling information for the drug for me using some of our proprietary algorithms and LLMs that are working behind the scenes. As you understand the drug landscape, there are 4 dimensions across which you would want to understand your analysis. And it all starts with your patients of interest and your patient population. And from there on, I'd kind of go on to show how you can now explore this patient population across demographic information, across payers, providers, pharmacy channels that cover them. So with that thought in mind, I actually started identifying my patient population. Now, I wanted to look at patients who were prescribed third-line therapies and would now essentially become potential candidates for fourth-line bispecific therapies. What I did is I essentially put in my patient population of interest with a rather simple prompt. And what you're seeing now happen pretty much real time in a few seconds is what Map AI is essentially doing is it's inferring and breaking down this rather complex sentence and taking all of those individual contexts and using sub-agents in the background to actually create this mesh of parallel tasks that is going to resolve each of these contexts and return back. What you're seeing on screen is very specific patient counts that are in alignment to a drug dosage that was expressed, in alignment with a sequence or a time window within which you want to be looking at these patients. And it's able to do that all from a rather long sentence, but how it would naturally occur to me. So with this patient population identified, as an analyst, as a business user, or a data scientist, I can now go on to investigate the patient population further. I can look at demographic information in terms of age, gender. I could look at race and ethnicity distributions in these populations. And I don't have to stop there. I can keep going further and look at yearly, distributions of these patients, and at, where are my patients, where are most of these patients occurring. From there on, I can move on to the provider landscape and say, who are the providers who are treating these patients of interest, and what is their patient count, which is extremely useful when you think about HCPs that you want to target. And then what are the payers, and what are the type of payers that are covering these patients, or what are the providers that are, what are the pharmacy channels that also distribute drugs for these patients. And as you can see, I can't talk as fast as the AI is processing all of this information. And for what it's worth, I was able to do this entire kind of end-to-end consolidated bird's eye view analysis in under a minute. And what it also can do, because it's built on the Komodo platform, it is interoperable with all of our platform solutions, which all nest on top of the healthcare map data, which has all of this augmented data as well. And it can work seamlessly across our many solutions and help you get organically to where you want to conclude your analysis. From my previous life, most of my analysis would end up in a PowerPoint slide or a deck. So Komodo does have prepackaged analytics and dashboards, and you can actually use the AI to recommend what could be the best visual representation of your analysis, and it would recommend you a dashboard and then organically draw you to that conclusion. But with AI, everything that you've just seen and everything that I've just done, maybe as a business user or a non-technical user, I can pin this data definition, I can pin this analysis, share it with a data scientist, and they could actually either review this analysis or do their own. And you can now imagine a future where you do not have any barriers on this analysis, because everybody who's involved in deriving outcomes is working from a common shared data definition and is using the appropriately contextualized tool. So you're able to eliminate a lot of ambiguity that goes in the analysis and that goes in the sharing and logical reporting of that analysis. And Yeah, that's Map AI for you. And yes, it's available now, and we're very excited to see how our partners and customers adopt this and use this.
Thank you, Vibha. You know, one of the things as a business user, as a commercial leader, I think about is how I can best collaborate with my data science partners, and to be able to create an analysis and then share it for further investigation is, I think, particularly powerful. So appreciate you sharing that with us. And I'd like to go now to our audience and launch another poll. Let's bring up poll number 2 and talk about AI adoption. And first of all, we all have used a variety of tools, whether for personal home life or certainly in business, as we shared previously. What is your preference, as your understanding, data ownership and privacy when adopting AI solutions? Is data ownership extremely important, very important? Is it more somewhat or moderately important, or perhaps not at all important that you own your own data? Let's discuss and let's get some input from you, and then let's discuss the findings. We'll leave the poll open for about 20 more seconds as we see the information coming in regarding data ownership and privacy when adopting solutions. All right, let's see what the audience shared as part of this. We have a distinguished audience from around the world. I've enjoyed seeing all the locations that are joining us as we visit today on this panel. What are the results of that poll, please? All right, so as we think about data ownership, vast majority says it's extremely or very important, followed with the distant seconds of about 13% saying it's somewhat important, and only 1%, it says says not at all important. So I think that reflects, I'm seeing smiles from my fellow panelists, it reflects what we would understand as well. Data ownership and privacy remain a true north as we're thinking about adoption across the industry. And I appreciate everyone's participation in that poll. Now we're going to move to the third part of our discussion, which is as we think about AI solutions to democratize data insights around the org, what ways can this impact decision-making across the product lifecycle? Are there barriers you can imagine could be overcome because of that? Maybe I'll start with you, Gaurav, please.
Sure. Maybe I'll first refer to an example which Vivek mentioned, which is quite dear to my heart because I did my PhD in drug discovery within oncology. At the time, it used to take 3 years to crystallize a protein. Proteins, as you know, are building blocks of any kind of therapies, and with the advent of AlphaFold, we have 200 million proteins which are already crystallized within a matter of 2 years, when it took decades to just crystallize 200,000 proteins before that. No wonder we had a Nobel Prize last month awarded to AlphaFold and the Google DeepMind team. Secondly, I mean, it used to take months when I did the drug discovery using AI 15 years ago in my PhD to find out interaction between ligands and proteins. And now it takes hours and days. So it just gets me incredibly excited how the time frames are going to shorten by a lot when it comes to using AI for drug discovery. And implications are just massive to patients, to the industry overall. So that keeps me excited. But when you talk about specifically business use cases, right, looking at business users and democratizing data for and insights across the organization, I'll refer back to the first use case I mentioned earlier, which was search-driven analytics. The biggest barrier such an AI-based analytics platform overcomes is that, unlike traditional tools that require complex queries, these platforms allow users such as brand leads, analysts, and so on, who have no or minimal data science knowledge, to ask questions using natural language and get immediate answers, much like what Vibha also showed with Map AI. It really accelerates decision-making in areas such as drug sales, patient adherence, clinical trial analysis, and so on. And essentially, you don't need to know Python, or you don't need to know any language at all to do searches on databases like Snowflake and so on anymore, to get those really rich insights and answer questions around how your products are performing and so on. But it goes also beyond basic data reporting. It also detects patterns, trends, and root cause analysis within the data. So, there's a lot that AI can do. Obviously it's early stages, and companies are implementing and developing it. So developing and learning is a continuous feature of this. As and when you use it more, it gets more smarter. You can also do causal analytics, so you can understand state of the business, for example, increase and decrease in your total prescription, how it is linked, and how it's rooted to new prescription versus how that's linked in turn to switches or source of business. And then finally, internal initiatives like sampling, vouchers, etc. So you can do the entire causal analytics essentially, and then get the help of AI to help you go to the root cause. It's also scalable across data sources, so you can have multiple data sources that pharma companies use around, EMR, sales, market access, real world evidence, you name it. And not just structured, also unstructured data. So one can incorporate ChatGPT-like interfaces to search primary market research, for instance, to get, just ingest in-depth HCP audio interviews and directly search for insights from it. At the end, it depends on how good you are at prompting, right? In terms of how good of an insight you get out of it and how actionable it is. And in such cases, if cost is a barrier, this reduces reliance on external partners to extract insights for you, where out of the KOL interviews, so you can do it yourself. So there's a lot of things you can do. I can keep speaking about it. Coming back to the other use cases I mentioned, it addresses the problems about not losing the window of opportunity I spoke about when the patients really need that therapy at the right time. But I'll pause there and I'll let other panelists share their point of views.
Well, I know we all have a lot of passion about this and what's possible. Anurag, I see you smiling. Would you please share your thoughts? And my audio isn't quite clicking in, so you might. I want to be able to hear your words, Anurag.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Sorry, I was on mute. So, yeah, I mean, the reason I was smiling, looking at the passion that Gaurav has, definitely, I mean, the way he explained and showed the use cases really makes true sense, like how these can be applied. I mean, I was thinking more in a sequential way. So he touched upon like how molecules can be expedited to be tested, like which are the eligible candidates, right? We are saving a lot of time there and saving a lot of money, energy there. But when it moves to the clinical trial, I think Vivek touched upon that clinical trials can be accelerated not only by knowing the eligible patients, where they are, and reaching out to those HCPs or principal investigators who are leading it, right? So a lot of data and insights can be generated, which can be deployed through clinical operations, MSLs, to reach out to those HCPs and talk about the eligible patient population in a very anonymized way, definitely not breaching the code of conduct, to be very honest here. But you can provide where the hot spots are, right? So those kind of things can be done. Then using AI, as soon as you see the promising results coming out of the clinical trial, that promise itself can be derived in advance. Nowadays, I think even FDA is testing on how can AI be used to judge upon, right? What would be the clinical trial outcomes, right? Just to expedite the entire process. But as soon as you see the promise, probably then you can go into the priming of the market or preparing the market. Okay, this product is coming. What are the right segments of HCP? What are the right segments of patients who will get benefited? And I can build a lot of pre-planning exercise to prepare the market. And as soon as that product is launched, then you can do the right content that you are talking about, right segments, right HCP. You can position the product in a right way and leverage. And then you can, all these AI things, the advantage is you can always have a feedback loop to improve your algorithm. And as it matures, it becomes better and better over time. But you are not waiting for something to happen. You can predict, you can synthesize much of the insights ahead of the time. I think that is what the power is.
Yeah, I think that reminds me of the comment that Vivek made a little earlier too around synthesis. You have a great deal of information that allows you to synthesize with speed, which certainly is part of the promise. Anything to add on your part, Vivek or Vibha?
Vibha, go ahead.
Yeah, I think most of it has been covered. I think what is important to understand is that AI is also is a very critical tool in kind of going deeper into the analysis. So to say Anurag's example of like looking at providers ahead of time and, basically prepping as you launch a drug to market, AI can actually help you even predict patterns in terms of what is the confidence that you want to predict or you want to forecast that the provider is actually going to change their prescription patterns. And I think you can look for all of these trends in AI and be extremely targeted and focused in terms of any use case, even clinical trial site recruitment. AI can look at past data, can predict trends in terms of, what are the chances that if you do enroll a particular site, that you would actually have a successful enrollment and that you would be able to complete your phase of study and report results in a confident and reliable manner. What are patterns that have been, observed with a particular principal investigator? So I think what AI does is besides the definitive analysis in terms of what has been, it's really good in terms of predicting. And once you train it to look for patterns, and once you train it in terms of how to infer anomalies or how to infer trends, it can actually be a very, very powerful tool predictively. And from where I see, AI can do this scalably across different use cases. I think once you've been able to set a common denominator or a common experience on how the data needs to be evaluated and inferred, then you engineer it for very specific use cases. But it's continuous, but it's extremely scalable versus trying to solve clinical trial site recruitment. I think for the past 10 years, it's been this holy grail, which everybody's trying to chip away at. So now you do have an opportunity to work on it in an aggregated, consolidated fashion and draw common patterns, which will actually give you a highly predictable, outcome using AI. So I think that's the differentiator. We've been trying to do predictions and we've been trying to, infer patterns, but now with AI, a lot of that becomes very internal. A lot of that becomes extremely scalable and extremely repeatable and in a very, very confident and reliable manner. So yeah, it's very promising where we're trending in terms of what we can do. We're very excited.
There's a great deal of
I'll
promise.
just add one thing that I think we're all kind of converging on the same idea that data is going to be important in the future, and there is a lot of opportunity to democratize it now, and you have building some tools now to do that.
I think that's well said. And, we're going to go to our third and final poll. Obviously, among our panel, we feel a great deal of enthusiasm and about the appeal and the power. And I'd like to ask our audience to comment. As you think about this opportunity, there's also challenges we must overcome. And so we've developed a list of challenges that might be one that is the biggest in your organization or in your current role. Which do you consider the biggest challenge? Is it lack of training or understanding? Ethical concerns, perhaps it's colleague resistance, maybe it's limited availability of AI tools, or concerns about data privacy and security. These are 5 that we hear from time to time as we discuss in industry panels like this. What's your biggest challenge as you think about your role? And I'm seeing responses come in. Thank you for participating. We'll just leave this open a few more seconds to collect any additional poll responses, and then we'll pop up the results. Great. Let's see the outcomes. What did our audience think about this particular question as we review the challenges individuals may face in their roles? So some nice distribution, which is a little different than we've seen in a couple of our questions. So first of all, lack of training and understanding. So an opportunity to learn what is possible. Certainly, many of us, I think all of us in this industry are learners at heart. So lots of opportunity there. Followed by concerns about data quality and, data privacy and security with about 30% of the responses. Next would be limited availability of AI tools and a split for our final response between ethical concerns and colleague resistance. So thank you for giving us a sense of what's on your mind as you think about the biggest challenge in your role. Well, we're in some of our last few minutes of discussion. So to our team, to our panelists, what are your views of the critical elements needed for natural language processing and GenAI to generate accurate and reliable insights. Perhaps Aviva, I could ask you to share first.
So I think we've covered like broad facets with this, but maybe for this question, I'll structure it on the way I see it. I think from my perspective, I see three key areas of focus that we have to get really good at if we want AI to be become a dependable tool for reporting business outcomes. The first area of focus is it all starts with data quality. AI engineers currently spend a disproportionate amount of their time just prepping, cleaning, cleansing, curating the data, and it takes away from the kind of focus on building the AI models and like really fine-tuning them. While we were building Map AI, we were able to offset this to a great extent because we were using the healthcare map, which is already a high quality data source, extremely aggregated, extremely deduped, anonymized, well within the boundaries of what we could use. So we did have a little bit of a threshold there. But as an industry, I think data quality is maybe like a primary challenge to get started on the AI journey. The second is once you've maybe miraculously solved the data quality concern is training the AI to be able to retrieve accurate data based on your specific asks or prompts and eliminate ambiguity as much as possible. I think anybody who's been on this AI train knows that LLMs do not deal well with ambiguity. So how do you kind of eliminate as much as possible? Even while we're building Map AI, and we're very early in our journey, we had to use a combination of RAG, fine-tuning, and prompt engineering, like all the tools that are out there, before we could even achieve any kind of an optimal performance. And it's a continuous process to get that balance right. We're continuously training, we're continuously fine-tuning, we're continuously like feeding RAG-based information to Map AI. And the third, I think this has been touched upon with data ownership. Some look at it as privacy, some look at it as security. But I think the third key challenge, especially for healthcare, and that's paramount, is to preserve data privacy and compliance. And in my experience of building Map AI, this was not an easy problem to solve. And we've had to solve it at multiple and different levels in our own tech stack. I mean, for example, any kind of data use agreements or business agreement policies, we've had to implement within the platform at a platform service level. But for other concerns around, hey, about data ownership, how are you using our data, we've had to look at an architecture that used open source LLM frameworks and where we had more control and flexibility about not lending our user and our conversational data to training the AI programmatically, because these are very legitimate concerns when you're in the healthcare industry. So I think the third part is a very specific healthcare or regulated industry area of focus or challenge, the way I see it. But yeah, I think data quality training and then just making sure everything is private and compliant.
That's well said. Let's go next to Gaurav, please.
Yeah, no, I think we've covered a lot of solid ground on the what should be done to ensure accuracy here. I think high quality data, there is no two ways about it. That's a must. You must have heard garbage in, garbage out. So like with any other database platforms, one is building, it's critical to ensure we have clean, diverse, and relevant data sets to ensure the models learn effectively and avoid biases. Second, I'd say domain-specific knowledge is critical. Integrating the domain expertise into models, it does help contextualize insights accurately, especially in pharma. It's critical to apply that domain expertise also to develop those algorithms and models and the specific use cases. Anurag and we've both touched base on continuous learning and adaptability. It is very important to update models with new data, adapting them to emerging trends, and maintaining and also to ensure they maintain decisions, the relevance of those over time. Lastly, I just mention that it's very important in my perspective to, especially in the initial time frame, to validate the answers AI is throwing to minimize hallucinations. Especially at pharma, lives are at stake. So if a patient's metastatic versus not, in the example I shared, it's critical to ensure you're, near 100% accurate, and you can do that. You can track it specifically using a lot of data assets available out there, the patient journey to see, if it turned metastatic or not, and then retrain the model to make it more accurate. Earlier in my career, I also developed AI-based algorithms to identify and detect adverse events and report to the authorities. Again, very critical to make sure the AI used to adjudicate potential AEs as AEs or not, real AEs or not, is critical because, again, lives are at stake. It's important to ensure accurate reporting of adverse events. And again, I think retraining it as we go a long time with some manual intervention is critical here. So I think there are 3 or 4 things important to me.
Truly, some great use cases. Let's close out this thought with Anurag, please.
Sure. Thank you. I think Vibha and Gaurav covered it all. I am just adding from an organizational perspective, I think 2, 3 things are very important. One, whenever you are thinking about these kind of solutions, think about for whom you are creating this so that you can customize the solutions and keep the guardrails, right? If you're creating something for sales team, that cannot be deployed probably as such for medical team and vice versa, right? Because there are ethical and compliance kind of, guardrails that you have to follow. Second is be very clear on what is the goal you are trying to achieve, right? All the challenges that Gaurav mentioned, right? Are you predicting adverse event? Then if adverse event is something predicted with high confidence, does it go through the right pharmacovigilance route? Why it was not picked up by them? It raises all these kind of questions within the organization when you create these solutions. You have to minimize this conflict and put all those disclaimers when you deploy these solutions, like what it is, what are the limitations, and what is the confidence. You can deploy all these things with all those disclaimers because every function within a pharma company or in a healthcare company has their own remits to do. So that is very critical when you think about all these solutions from outside of DS and AI team, right? That is how you have to work across the organization to bring everyone along the journey of the right solution that you are creating.
That's great. And this is a perfect transition into the next question, which I have for you, Vivek. Could you speak to how you've seen organizations select and procure the tools when you think about working across teams, as just mentioned?
Yeah, no, I think everything that has been said in the last 10 minutes, let's try to kind of aggregate that into a framework that we can use to analyze and evaluate tools. I think all 3 of them, right? All Gaurav, Vibha, and Anurag highlighted the importance of data, as well as the right stakeholder involved. So here's the framework that I think about. You need to align with the internal objective. This is not something, especially there is very few people who, and it is increasing, who understand the value of these tools and technologies in everyday practice, especially for pharma. So identifying objectives that align with sort of broader business goals and making sure the use case you're developing is grounded in that is the first step. Second is as early as you can, right? Because we are working in a very regulated pharmaceutical environment, compliance challenges. We want to make sure that the stakeholders are involved at an early stage of the planning process, which includes regulatory or compliance stakeholders, especially those, because that will make the process much easier long term. And then when we are evaluating tools, technologies, vendors, I think understanding internal capabilities and when to say that we don't have them and be very open and honest about them, as well as being able to leverage external vendors. And this is where really what Vibha alluded to, right? Domain-specific knowledge, what Gaurav talked about in terms of using these models that are grounded in the domain itself. So the vendor evaluation piece becomes even more important, that they have some expertise in the pharmaceutical environment. And then finally, and this is again another pet peeve of mine, is that you definitely need to do some pilot programs to actually demonstrate the value of whatever the tool technology that you are developing for any of the use cases that we have talked about today. So then putting this all together, and then to wrap on top of put a bow on it, that AI literacy. We're very early stages. Again, I think we are in a kind of all optimist about this technology, but overall we need to have more literacy, and I think everyone's touched on that.
I think that's an excellent synthesis, and truly literacy, as we noted in our audience feedback as well as the the comments made around the panel. There's so much opportunity. So with that, I think I'd be remiss if I didn't say thank you all so much for this robust discussion. We could clearly go on longer, but as we prepare for our last few minutes, I wonder if you would leave with one final takeaway or insight that our audience could bring back to their teams. What might that be? And Vivek, you just had the last word, so if you'd like to begin, well then.
Yeah, I'll start with the same thing. That it is try to get as much literacy around these tools, around understanding what the limitations and guardrails are. Take that back to your organizations and start learning about this because it's coming, if you want it or not.
It is coming. Yes, this is true. Gaurav, your thoughts as we wrap.
One parting thought I will talk about is to stay away from the new shiny thing syndrome. Do not use or create AI or technology for that matter just for the sake of it, right? Choose a business problem carefully first. Evaluate how can AI do it better than what traditional tools and processes currently deliver. And at the end, it has to deliver either better efficiencies, reduce costs, or better revenues. So I think you need to build something which one can track and evaluate in terms of the business impact. And showing that real business impact and value is really critical. Otherwise, very quickly, organizations and leaders will get over the initial excitement and then it wanes out.
That's good counsel. Anurag, your thoughts?
Sure. I think for me, the most important part is be clear on what you are trying to do and communicate with your stakeholders in a very simple way. Be clear on what is the impact you are trying to make. And I think the last part is prepare for the change management. That is the huge piece that takes the maximum time. Taking the entire organization or your cross-functional partner along with this journey is a big take. So you should have a very clear strategy in terms of simplifying the communication, bringing the right stakeholder to your core team meetings, keeping them away from the technical aspect, but giving them like every time tangible thing that you have made in terms of progress and what is the value it is bringing to the table. I think be simple and clear on those things.
Yeah, objectives first, be simple and clear, very well said. Well, I'd like to ask a couple of just questions that we've received from the poll from the audience. There is a Q&A feature in Zoom. We welcome your inputs. The first question I'd like to share is, what role do you see academic research playing in the pharma analytics revolution? And I thank our audience for asking this question.
I can take that question. And I think academic institutions, both in terms of those who are doing the research and coming up with innovative ideas, because they go very broad, right? They can do the research in any directions and think beyond the scope. And when those ideas come to, say, people like us sitting in industry, something innovative has happened, we tend to adopt depending on the use cases. I mean, being a researcher, I think in AI side, you are kind of creating a solution for N number. It can be for aerospace, it can be for automobile, it can be for pharma, it can be for healthcare, for patients, right? What we tend to do is what is out there and how can we customize those solutions or researches to our needs. So I think that is where the academic institutions play a very big role in innovating in AI. If I'm not wrong, most of the AI solutions were developed in AI, in academic solutions, and then were adopted in the industry. So I think that is where I see the value. Moreover, I see specifically from pharma perspective, say academic healthcare institution working with pharma. That can be a very powerful combination to help our patients developing those AI algorithm in partnership, right? It's not about how pharma can influence the decision. It's all about how can we help HCPs to make the right decision in favor of patient outcomes. So that is also second use case, very specific to the pharma.
That's wonderful. Thank you. And as we reach the top of our hour together, I want to thank everyone for your participation. What a wonderful panel. It's been a delight being your moderator today. And thank you to our audience for your participation and your questions. Please continue to follow these channels so that we can share with you the most relevant information as this exciting time in pharma analytics continues to evolve through AI and ML. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.